Good morning. As Chris said, my name's Dave Eisenberg. I'm the assistant editor of Brewbound. So one of the common things people celebrate about the craft beer industry is just how diverse the marketplace is. And brewers from all over the country are building unique portfolios and sort of attempting to carve out their own foothold in the landscape. So in doing so, people are pushing behind their portfolios in different ways. So I guess we brought three experts here to talk about what they're doing, because they all have kind of very different and diverse portfolios, and they're pushing behind it in different ways. So I guess I'll just invite these guys up right now, if you guys want to come join. We have Mike Stevens, the co-founder of Founders Brewing, John Bryant, the founder of No Lie Brewhouse, and Ben Savage, the CMO of Flying Dog. And they are joining us right here. So yeah, absolutely. Guys, thank you for joining us. So yeah, I guess just to start, and we can sort of just go down the line, starting with you, Mike, and just go down. Just broadly speaking, how would you all describe your portfolios, and sort of what's the overarching strategy that you guys employ to push behind the brands they're in?
Yeah, we're in a little bit of an odd spot. I would say that, arguably for the last 18 years, we've been really focused on diversity. We never really had a brand that represented more than probably 20% of our volume. I think at the peak it was maybe 27%. And then All Day came along about 3 years ago, and now we're faced with a product that wants to be somewhere around 50, potentially 60% in a 3-year period. It was virtually nothing 3 years ago. So we've kind of deployed a strategy where we focus a lot on our Tier 2 brands. We're constantly a team that looks towards innovation and really kind of building up what that Tier 2 brand is going to be behind All Day. But we're taking the position now, let's let All Day run. It's a brand we really believe can open up doors for us, especially out in the chain world. And we kind of got caught in an odd spot too. I think Scott brought it up, which I definitely subscribe to, that you're going to have a lot of successes in the local arena, and you're going to have some successes at the national level. It's going to be very difficult to get into that national level, and this really started to heat up maybe 3-4 years ago, and we saw it. And at that point, like it or not, we were regional, maybe a little larger than regional. So we had a decision to make. We either prepare for a smaller scale brewery and outfit, which we weren't really heading down that path, or we crank the volume up and go for it. So we cranked the volume up and went for it, and obviously All Day now can help get us that way. But I don't think you march towards 1 million barrels without a lead brand. I think it'd be very difficult to do it with a diverse portfolio.
Right. Ben, you're kind of a bit different. What do you guys got going on?
Yeah, we basically, or maybe the former strategy of Founders is that really we have about we like to have 3 brands, three SKUs basically make up just over 60% of our portfolio. And what's unique about that is that we're really indifferent to some degree whether or not those 3 brands are the 3 brands in 2015 and whether there'll be 3 different brands in 2019. And so we like the constant innovation. We're market takers to some degree. If we have a lead SKU, we came out with a blood orange beer about a year ago, and it's by the end of this year it'll be one of our top 3 brands, and it'll displace something that was a top 3 brand for the last 5 years. But we really feel like our consumers tell us what they want, our fans tell us what they want, and we want our brand to be Flying Dog. And we want that to be what people fall in love with. And so if they fall in love with that, then they'll end up falling in love with whatever beer that brand makes. And so that's been our driving force and our strategy with portfolio development pretty much for the last 5 years.
Right. John?
Yeah, I mean, our job is to be incredibly inefficient. We want to find brands, recipes, beer styles that are really hard to brew. They're really difficult, they're super expensive, and we create niches within the environment of beer. And we take those to our distributors and the retailers and the customers, and then we begin to build them, and then we find a way to make them efficient. We do a fruit beer that's 1.5 pounds of all natural fruit per gallon of beer. That's crazy inefficient, right? And then you just put your mind to it of how do you make that work. And you can go through your cost of goods and you find a way. We don't want to have one or two brands at this juncture of our development. As you get larger, I understand why that's part of the process. But for us, what we want to do is find niches of recipes, of ingredients, packages, pricing, all those different kinds of models to find our relevancy, which is kind of, we've put together a team of people. Our DNA code is every day, how do we do it different? How do we have fun with it? How do we create something new that nobody else is doing? Make it inefficient, because then nobody will copy you. Make it hard, right? And then find a way to make it so. And that's how we've built our portfolio of 22-ounce brands, 12-ounce 4-packs. We have a 12-ounce 6-pack. We're not in cans. We decorate, paint almost all of our bottles, which is crazy expensive. We just went to a pressure-sensitive label because we found a way to do it. And that's our niche. We take to the distributor and the retailer brands that other people don't take to them. And we make it super difficult to copy it because we're creating these recipes in-house. We're doing different package types. But we've put together our company team of people. That's what they thrive on every day. So that's how we get up and eat breakfast. We go about it differently, and it's not daunting. It's not intimidating. It's not scary because we're okay to fail. So that's part of what we do. It's okay to make a lot of mistakes. It's okay to fail. Just learn from them.
So, and I guess we can just go backwards this time. So how much of your individual strategies do you guys predetermine versus how much of it do you let sort of the market dictate for itself? For something like All Day, was it something where you anticipated it being the rocket ship that it was, or did you just sort of let it become that based on what the market was telling you? So I guess, what do you drive behind specifically as opposed to letting the market dictate for you?
I mean, what dictates us is we serve a customer, and we're within the beer industry, and our job is to stay off the long tail. Our job is to create our small tail and make all those tails come together in a bigger one. And overarching strategy is to be creative. I mean, we're a 10,000 barrel brewery. There's enough 10,000 barrel breweries in the United States. Why do you need another IPA? And that's how we approach it each day. So the overarching strategy is be creative, be different, be unique, be an incubator of creativity. And that's our DNA of our company, is every day, just be an incubator for creativity. A lot of those things will fail, but we're going to get here and here. Something super successful is going to come out of it, be it our barrel aging program, be it what have you. But all those were kind of formulated by trial, error, mistake, learn, grow, move forward. And so our distributors have begun to look to Noli as simply that. They're going to get it done. If somebody else can't get it done, they're going to find a way. And so there's a value to us being with them because we just bring them newness, we bring them agility, flexibility, nimbleness, and just like a never die attitude. And that can be contagious in a real positive way.
Yeah, I think our incubator at Flying Dog is, we have a Brewhouse Rarities series, which is about 8 or 9 different beers every year. They come out every 6 weeks. And what happens is we invite everyone in the brewery. We're about 100 employees. We invite everybody up to this mountain. I know it's in Maryland, so it's more like a hill, but it's a park, and we have everybody who works at the brewery, from accountants to tour guides to maintenance personnel to HR. Everybody has the opportunity to pitch a beer idea or multiple beer ideas. We had about maybe 130 pitches this year. And basically, our remarkable beer team gets together and they flush through all the pitches, and we pick what we think will be the most innovative or interesting 8, and that becomes our series for the next year. We actually just did it about 3 weeks ago. And that is where we get a lot of our inspiration. We keep that sort of think tank there, and a lot of breweries, I think, get into this mode where like 1 or 2 people come up with a lot of the recipe developments at the brewery, and that's worked for them, and that's great. But we really feel like ideas for great beer concepts can come from anywhere, and we really harvest that every year. And you can start to see through the 100 employees, you start to see trends, and you'll start to see, one year we didn't have any IPAs pitched, and another year we had, 15 Saisons pitched, and and there's something to that. There's like a groundswell within the brewery that we ourselves want to see something different than what we might be making already, and that's where it all starts. And then we get some feedback from our fans, but we don't really push anything in particular. I mean, we have marketing that gets built into the story around a specific beer, and we talk about that. But it's not like, I think your question was like, what is this driver that gets behind like a new brand? And that's not really, that doesn't really exist. I mean, there's launch plans and things like that, but it's not like, all right, this beer's coming out on June 1st, and by October we want it to be 15% of our portfolio. That's really not, because there's an inauthenticity to that, because we really want the fans to tell us if it's the next all day or, whatever, and that would be, that's usually like a pleasant, surprise sometimes. So that's where we come up with it.
Yeah, and I echo the same. I mean, we typically, I think a lot of craft brewers just look inward, and that's all we've done. I mean, our slogan, Brewed for Us, that came year 2000. So that was when we were on the verge of bankruptcy and kind of realized we didn't even really like the beers we were making at the time. So we thought, what the hell, if we're going under, let's at least do something that we, some beers that we like. So
well, that sort of brings me to the question I had for you, Mike. There is that story that you guys were sort of on the brink of bankruptcy, and you had that epiphany that you weren't crazy about the beers that you were making, and you reimagined the portfolio. How do you manage that? How do you reimagine a portfolio while maintaining forward momentum?
Well, it's a lot easier than defaulting on 2 bank loans, going 3 years not paying the federal government, and defaulting on your landlord's lease. So that, it wasn't that difficult. But no, we were faced we had to make a change because we knew that what we were doing. But 20 years ago, it was kind of ambers. That was the ambers and pails were the thing. So that's kind of what we did. We came out with our amber and our pale. And it wasn't literally until we had we defaulted on the loan, and our landlord gave us a week to come up with the money, and all kinds of stuff came crashing down at the same time. And we did look at each other and thought, screw this, sucks. I don't even want to do this anymore, because it was in the Midwest in the late 90s, mid-90s to the late 90s, it was a very difficult time to sell craft beer because it just wasn't really that big of a deal back then. So. But once we did, we came out, once we said, let's scrap this, we came out with Dirty Bastard, and that was, immediately we started to see this. I mean, we went another 10 years losing money, but it still, we saw success when we started to, experiment more and more, and then we kind of, got really big in that whole extreme beer movement with a half a dozen brewers or so, and our name just started to climb. And, that's, once we saw that, we just kept kind of going that way. And we've always had a very diverse portfolio because of that. And we still live by that kind of innovation where let's look inward. When we came out with All Day, honestly, we were in development on All Day about 5 years ago. There was no session ale category. We did it because we had a good 20, 25 years of drinking beer in this craft segment, and we were warriors on the street for a long time. So our beers were all 7-10%, and everyone wants to have a beer with you. And after about 12 of those, we just, you can do that in your 20s. And once we got into our mid 40s, we're like, shit, I can't drink our own beer anymore. So we went to our guys, and we have a product development team that meets weekly. I'm a part of it. My partner Dave is. There's about 10 of us on it, and we said, can we make a beer that's under 5%, but tastes really good, tastes like a Founders beer? And that took us about 3 years before we brought it out to market, but we got lucky, I'd say. We made a beer that we wanted to drink, but ultimately we ended up timing this crazy session ale category by dumb luck, and we launched it right when all of a sudden there was this buzz, and now I think it might be the volume leader. I don't know.
Yeah, so I just want to bounce around between the three of you and learn a little bit more about your specific business. So Ben, you mentioned it would be sort of inauthentic to sort of drive behind something, so you prefer to let sort of your fans decide for you. At the same time, you guys are coming out with a new beer called Counterculture, which is a malt-forward offering. And just from talking with Jim Caruso, he mentioned he kind of foresees it becoming sort of a stalwart in your portfolio. So I guess how do you make that determination for beer sort of before it's released that you see it becoming a core offering alongside some of your other bestsellers?
Yeah, I think, we have a pretty robust IPA, hop-forward portfolio, and, have an option at the various ABV levels, which is sort of where we wanted to round everything out. And we just had gotten a little bit away from malt-forward beers just for a time there, and we just, you can only go to so many sort of events and hang out, the concerts that we do or whatever, and everybody's like, I wish you guys had an option that was not hoppy. And so, again, our fans just kind of put that bug in our ear, and behind the Brewhouse Rarity pitch sessions, we had 1 year no hop-forward beers were even pitched. So we just felt like it was time to come out with something that was unique, and it really is not categorized. It's just an ale. It's somewhere between a brown and an amber, and it's got a little bit of dry hopping because we can't help ourselves. And it's just a really unique beer that we feel that all of our fans who like malt-forward beers, they'll gravitate toward. And I think it'll be we ended up putting the Last Supper on the label, which has we've gotten some emails about that, but it's just it's sort of a fun beer, and it's counter to our culture, and that's why we named it such, because we did about 5 years or so really latching on to hop-forward beers, and we really think that this could be. I mean, if Left Hand, all of the guys at Left Hand, if they can, 60% of their portfolio is probably milk stout. I find that very amazing. So that those people are out there. They love craft beer, and we have a segment of our fan base who loves Flying Dog, and we just need to give them the Flying Dog that they really want to have in their fridge all the time.
I'm sure you've gotten an email about a few of your labels.
Yeah, no, it's we don't feel like we're succeeding unless we get emails about our labels.
Yeah. So John, as you like to say, you guys are inefficient in the way you do things, and you guys aren't flagship oriented. You focus on differentiation and experimentation. So, what are some of the challenges associated with that methodology to not be pushing behind one core brand? What are some of the difficulties in bringing a variety of beers into market and sort of relaying that message to consumers that this is who we are, we don't have one beer for you to lean on?
Yeah, I mean, all of our experiences, really everybody in this room, what you bring to the companies we're a part of is really, it's a track record of everything we've been exposed to. I was really fortunate to start in the beer industry at G. Heilman Brewing a lot of years ago. And the last bastion of their strength was the Pacific Northwest, where we had the Rainier Brewery, the Henry's Brewery. We worked on Old Style out of La Crosse, which was a big brand in Chicago for a lot of years. But, the strength of the Heilman portfolio in the Northwest was, they had the malt liquor, they had Rainier, which was your premium. You had Henry Weinhard's, which was really before craft beer, and Henry's was the high end of the Pacific Northwest. And it traveled 5 or 6 states. And back then it was Lowenbrau, Michelob, Henry Weinhard's. Red Hook hadn't really gotten off the ground yet. And a lot of the craft breweries that are big in the Northwest were just being born. And what I learned in that process was there was a lot of different beer styles, priced at a lot of different levels and a lot of different packages. And that brewery did a really good job for a time of meeting all those customers. Where they kind of fell asleep and went out of business was they just stopped innovating. And they tried to keep making a flagship as the sales went down. Hey, we'll put a new TV ad on there. Hey, and in came the new brands, in came the influx of called R&D or experimentation, and got flat-footed, refused to change, and they went away. And a lot of my experiences I've been able to share where I've been, or especially at NOLI, is have a hunger to change, have a hunger to take risk. Don't follow. and try just to keep making things that will attract people. So when we say we're beautifully inefficient, it's by design. We'll find a way eventually to make that, if it's a success to the customer, efficient. So at our size, at 10,000 barrels, the last thing we should do is create a flagship, because we'd be competing with all these other breweries that are established that have flagships. We don't need to be a me too. And as Dan said earlier, I mean, there's enough IPAs out there. Will there still be another IPA invented we don't know about today that'll probably do 1 million barrels? Probably. But that's not our job. Our job is to find really creative, unique niches of beer. Like we do a coffee stout. We have the Italian coffee roasted. We run it right over the brewery. I mean, it's literally warm when we put it in the fermenter. And that's just part of it. That's so inefficient, let me tell you. We wait at the roaster, you know, for these bags, and we just basically take them right over to the brewery and put them in while they're still warm. Okay, you can't do that at a larger scale necessarily. At a larger scale, you're not going to put 1.5 pounds of fruit per gallon of beer either. But in that, there's a lot of learning that goes on. And we make a lot of mistakes in the process of this experimentation, but what we learn is what we're good at, and then we practice and we get better, and then we take another risk or another change, and it's not quite as daunting. But that's because we're small. And if we're 100,000 barrels someday or whatever that number is, yeah, you're going to adjust your culture a little bit to be efficient, because you have to do projections for a number of years out with your distributors, and then you work your model around hitting those numbers. So everything works towards that projection.
Right. Ben, you guys are a little bigger than that, but you still consider Flying Dog to be not flagship oriented. So as you scale, what are some of the challenges of not really having a flagship?
I think over the past 5 years, we've really worked hard to, you know, I look at brands like Sierra. Sierra's done this probably the best of anyone. Is, you know, how as you get bigger, how do you actually get smaller? And that's sort of what we force ourselves to get in that mentality. You know, we just we're 5 months in on a 15-barrel pilot system we had installed at the brewery, you know, just for R&D. And when we released Raging Bitch 5 years ago, it was like one of the first new beers we had done in a few years. You know, we had relocated 2,000 miles, and there was some unpacking and things. And now we do at least 20 new beers a year. We have, any given year, we have 40-plus beers in our portfolio. And it's sort of, what John's saying is that it's not efficient. We're not making the most profit we could possibly make by just getting behind a flagship, but we feel like we're innovating. We feel like we're going to find, you know, the next big style, you know, every year or so, and I think that we do the beers that we want to do, and I think that we constantly think about getting smaller as we're growing, because we just ripped all the offices out of the marketing department. We're just like at desks now, because I just want everyone to have this startup mentality, and I want us to feel like, you know, we're getting bigger, but I don't want us to feel complacent or comfortable, and I want us to feel like maybe we won't make payroll, you know, because there's an energy there that forces you to, I think, make really good decisions.
Right. Mike, you guys sort of employed a similar strategy for a long time. You had mentioned to me the other day you guys lived sort of for 15 years without a lead brand, and then All Day sort of emerged. So how has the emergence of All Day impacted how you drive behind your second and third tier brands like Dirty Bastard and your other brands? How has that impacted the way that you're growing those second tier brands?
Yeah, I mean, it's where we put a lot of our focus. I mean, you know, as mentioned, we grew up very similar to these guys in that it was just, you know, constant innovation, and it is what we like. That's why we got into the business. So we are putting a lot, I would say, more of our time and resources actually into those second tier brands to kind of always say to yourself, well, what's number two? You know, because number one, fortunately, right now can run 150 miles an hour, and it doesn't require a whole lot of effort and attention. Mm-hmm. But what does is making sure that as All Day now is opening up doors for us and getting us into all kinds of new points of distribution, we're kind of sitting back and watching it and tallying it and doing some gap analysis and saying, okay, get ready to strike, and then let's backfill all that stuff. Because typically, you know, you need to have a SKU number 2, 3 in there. So we're under constant innovation. We're looking at what Tier 2 looks like. We've got some ideas. Dirty Bastard, obviously, is a personal favorite for the brewery because it's really what it was kind of our reset button. But we've got some others in development that we think could have some legs too, so we're chasing after those.
Right. So I see we're kind of pushing up against it time-wise, but I guess just to wrap up here, would you guys have any advice for entrepreneurs as to how they should go about building their own portfolios, or things that worked, maybe some things that didn't work that you guys have learned along the way while building out your own?
Don't make an IPA. So, it depends on what you're going after. I mean, are you trying to be just a local brewer, or are you looking at a larger scale? Because honestly, I would say if you're looking for a larger scale, then I wouldn't do an IPA.
At all?
I don't think we found success until we kind of carved out our own niche and went, I think this is applicable to any industry, not even craft, is become really good at one damn thing, and that's it, and be the winner there. And I think that, in today's age, if you want to be a distributing brewery and your business model says I want to be a little larger than, say, just service your town, then you've got to think that way because there's a lot of competition out there. So narrow your focus and nail it on one thing.
Right. Ben?
My advice would be, we're all sitting talking about portfolio management and strategy, but it's really pointless if the beer isn't actually good. And so my biggest concern, a lot of conversations I have recently, is that there's a lot of breweries coming on board, and you can go to a festival where there's 40 different local breweries, and they're not all quality products, and I think that's a big concern. So I would say that before you talk about portfolio strategy or whether or not you should do an IPA, I think you should make sure that your brewer is trained and knows what he or she is doing, and because that's the biggest fear for me right now, is that there's a lot of breweries coming online. They may not have the expertise or the time invested in really honing their trade, and just because beer's infected doesn't make it sour, so
That's a good point.
John?
I'd say just assess your strengths of your organization. What can you do? What are you good at to that point? Before you stretch and just take a gamble and take a risk that's maybe not educated or thought out. Really review what your equipment can do, what equipment upgrades you would need to do. In a past life at a brewery, I mean, we started dry hopping where it hadn't been dry hop before because we wanted to do something different than our largest competitor down the street, and we knew they weren't set up to dry hop. And it was a tactical, strategic decision that built a couple brands pretty quickly. So, at NOLA, I constantly go, okay, what, in our talent of people, in our talent of equipment, in our know-how, what can we continue to do? And then what type of investment do we need to do in people or in equipment or in recipes to do another thing completely different? So it's always an assessment of what we can be really good at, and know what your strengths are and know what your weaknesses are.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Can we get a round of applause for these guys?